So we rented a camper to take us from Brisbane down to Sydney. We got it from Indie Campers, and we just started road tripping down, heading towards Byron Bay. Got a cheeky Hungry Jacks on the way too. We rocked up at Red Devil's Camping. So the next day was pretty beautiful, so we got up and made some breakfast, and then we headed down to the beach, which was really beautiful. Byron Bay is stunning, and just watched the surfers on the waves and dipped our toes in the sea, and went for a little bit of a wander. There's a lighthouse at Byron Bay which we could see in the distance. Apparently you can see whales quite a lot of the time, but we didn't see too many. We then made a move and started heading on. Gradually the road started to get greener and greener as we went down south. There was loads of rivers and some cute little towns too along the way. Our next stop then was Coffs Harbour, and made some lunch. Our next camp for the night was another paid camp called Gummer Reserve, and it was just by the river, and it was a really pleasant campsite, to be fair. The next day was a little bit foggy, but the mist was really beautiful on the water, and it soon cleared up and we made our way to Nambucca Heads. Our next stop was Port Macquarie, so we rocked up at Rocky Beach Lookout, which overlooks the beach, and we then checked out the koala hospital because we hadn't seen any koalas, and there was quite a few poorly koalas, but they were super cute. There was a few joeys that were just getting ready to be released as they re-released them too. Ironically, we went a couple of blocks away from the hospital and we saw our first wild koala, which was pretty cool. The historic Roto House is also right by the hospital. It's good to grab a coffee and have a look around. And then we made tracks and started heading on. Our next stop, we needed to go on a ferry ride across the river. We didn't actually realise this until we actually got to the river. It was only about $6.50, and we got to Lake Mile and our campsite at Lake Mile, which was a New South Wales campsite. I think it was about $17 for the night, but it was very beautiful, and the water was just so still. We just chilled there and watched sunset, and then next morning got back to it really. Our next pit stop was Newcastle, which is another beautiful port city, and there's a lighthouse there that looks a bit different from normal lighthouses, to be fair, but we walked along the seafront and on the beach and watched the waves crash against the breakers, I think they're called, and saw plenty of ships and boats just coming in and out of port. We had a little accident on the way to our next campsite and accidentally left the cupboards open. There was a lot of food everywhere, which was quite funny.
One good thing though, the curry powder didn't open up properly.
Okay.
Porridge has only come out a tiny bit. It's just like a little bit better.
But unfortunately, our next campsite, the road was closed. It was a free campsite for the night, so we hadn't paid. We decided to make tracks and work our way to Brisbane Water for another night, and we just stopped on the side by the water's edge and camped up for the night. It was a bit more of a road camp. Birds there as well, and a kookaburra, which was pretty cool, that we saw up close. The next day was a little bit wet, and it was time to go to the Blue Mountains, and our first stop there was the Botanical Gardens. And even though it was wet, it was still beautiful, and we went for a walk around there and saw some really interesting plants that you don't necessarily see in the UK. And some giant redwoods and a cool little jungle walk that you can go on. So it's good to just head there and connect with nature. Heading out on the misty, wet road that did start to dry up slowly as we went along. We then made our way to our camp for the night, which was called Lake Wallace Reserve, I think. And this was actually a free campground, which was pretty cool. And you could go right by the lake. You're allowed up to 48 hours there, which is pretty cool. And we decided to spend a couple of nights there. There's the famous giant lantern of Lithgow, which was interesting. Hassan's Walls lookout was absolutely beautiful. There's so many lookouts in the Blue Mountains, which is great. And yeah, we just hung there for a little while and just took in all the views.
I'm still looking forward to watching part 2 of Deathly Hallows with you.
Moving from place to place, one thing that was really amazing as well was the sounds of nature. Our next stop was Victoria Falls Lookout, which was another beautiful landscape. And then it was Govet's Leap Lookout as well, which I think out of all of them was definitely the most stunning that we saw, with some waterfalls as well. We then hit the Megalong Valley and we stopped by some tea rooms which were really nice. They had some really good banana bread, and we also had some chai lattes that were amazing. And this had beautiful scenery. This was another paid for campsite. It was a bit pricier, and to be fair, it probably wasn't worth the money, but it was very nice to have some hot showers for the night. And as the sun went down, we started to see some kangaroos, but it wasn't until the next morning where they actually got really close to us and surrounded the camper, which was super cool.
That one's really lovely.
Looks quite territorial, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thought you looked so fine. Guess we have to agree to disagree for this one last time.
We then headed to Echo Point for some more viewpoints, but it was pretty cloudy to be fair, and the best view we actually got was of the sign.
Sorry, I'm so shallow.
We then headed to our final campsite at Warragamba Recreation Reserve, another free campsite which is right by the dam, so you can go and walk along the dam and have a little look in the dam visitors centre as well, which is pretty cool. But then it was just heading back to Sydney and getting ready to head on. Thanks for watching this video. Please feel free to like, share and subscribe.